A 20-year-old soldier is charging uphill toward 3 German machine gun nests, grenade in his right hand, blood soaking through his uniform from a wound in his stomach. A rifle grenade strikes his right elbow and nearly tears the arm off. He looks down, sees his own fist still clenching the live grenade, and, with his left hand, pries it from the fingers of his severed arm. Then he throws it into the bunker. The arm would never be reattached. The fight was not over. Daniel Ken Inouye was born in Honolulu on September 7, 1924, the son of Japanese immigrants who had come to Hawaii seeking a life they could not find in Japan. His father, Hayataro, worked as a file clerk. His mother took in laundry. They lived in a small house in a working-class Japanese neighborhood in Honolulu, and they raised their children with a principle that Daniel would carry for the rest of his life. Loyalty to America was not optional. It was the price of belonging. Danny, as everyone called him, was a bright, sociable kid who wanted to be a surgeon. He volunteered with the Red Cross as a teenager and was working at an aid station near Pearl Harbor on the morning of December 7, 1941, bandaging the wounded as Japanese planes roared overhead. He was 17 years old, and his world cracked open in a single morning. He was an American, but he had the face of the enemy. Within weeks, Japanese Americans on the West Coast were being rounded up and sent to internment camps. In Hawaii, martial law was declared, Japanese language schools were closed, and an entire community fell under suspicion. The Inouye family was not interned, but the message was clear. Your loyalty is in question. For Danny Inouye, the only answer was to prove it beyond any doubt. In 1943, the U.S. War Department authorized the formation of a segregated unit composed entirely of Japanese-American volunteers. It was a gamble. Many in the military establishment believed Japanese Americans could not be trusted. The unit would be called the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, and its motto would become the most ironic and defiant statement in the history of the American military: "Go for broke." Inouye was among the first to volunteer. He was classified for C, enemy alien, a designation that would have exempted him from service. He volunteered anyway. So did thousands of others, many of them from families whose relatives were sitting behind barbed wire in internment camps in Idaho and Utah and California. They had every reason to refuse. They chose to fight. The 442nd trained at Camp Shelby in Mississippi, where they encountered a different form of American prejudice, the Jim Crow South. Japanese-American soldiers from Hawaii, who had never experienced mainland racism, were stunned. But they trained with a ferocity that impressed even their skeptics. They were not fighting only against Germany. They were fighting for the right to be called American. The unit shipped to Italy in June 1944 and was thrown into combat almost immediately. Within weeks, the 442nd had established a reputation for aggressive, relentless fighting that bordered on recklessness. Their casualty rate was appalling. They suffered more killed and wounded per capita than any comparable unit in the European theater. They did not retreat. They did not hesitate. And they did not stop. On April 21, 1945, 2nd Lieutenant Daniel Inouye led his platoon in an assault on a heavily defended ridge called Colle Musatello, near San Terenzo in the Ligurian hills of Italy. The Germans had fortified the position with 3 machine gun nests arranged in a staggered pattern, each one covering the approaches to the others. Taking the ridge required moving uphill, in the open, against interlocking fields of fire. It was the kind of position that stops attacks cold. Inouye was hit in the stomach almost immediately. The round went clean through his abdomen and came out his back. He stayed on his feet. He told no one. He kept moving uphill. He crawled to within 5 yards of the first machine gun emplacement and threw 2 grenades into it, then charged the position and cleared it with his submachine gun. The crew was killed. He did not pause. He moved to the second emplacement, destroyed it the same way, grenades followed by close-range automatic fire. His men followed, but Inouye was ahead of them, always ahead, pulling the assault forward by sheer will. The third bunker was the strongest. Inouye pulled the pin on his last grenade and drew back his arm to throw, and that is when the rifle grenade struck his right elbow. The explosion shattered the bone and left his arm hanging by threads of muscle and skin. The grenade was still clenched in his right fist, the pin already pulled, the fuse burning. What happened next has been described by every man who witnessed it, and the accounts are consistent. Inouye looked at his shattered arm, reached over with his left hand, and pried the live grenade from the fingers of his own severed limb. He threw it into the bunker. It detonated. He picked up his submachine gun with his left hand and continued firing into the position until a bullet struck him in the leg and he finally collapsed, tumbling down the hillside. He regained consciousness while being carried on a stretcher. His first words, directed at the soldiers who had stopped advancing to help him, were, "Nobody called off the attack. They went back up the hill." Inouye's right arm was amputated in a field hospital. He spent nearly 2 years in military hospitals recovering from his wounds. The dream of becoming a surgeon died on that ridge in Italy. You cannot operate with one hand. But the loss only redirected him. He decided to go into law, and then into politics, reasoning that if he could not heal bodies, he could try to heal a country that had locked up its own citizens for the shape of their eyes. The 442nd Regimental Combat Team finished the war as the most decorated unit in the history of the United States military for its size and length of service. It earned over 18,000 individual decorations, including 21 Medals of Honor, though most of those, including Inouye's, would not be awarded until 2000, when a review concluded that racial prejudice had systematically downgraded the decorations of Japanese-American soldiers during and after the war. For 55 years, Inouye's action at Colle Musatello had been recognized with a Distinguished Service Cross. The Medal of Honor was awarded by President Clinton on June 21, 2000. By then, Daniel Inouye had served in the United States Senate for 37 years. He would serve for 49 years total, the second longest tenure in Senate history. He was President pro tempore of the Senate, third in the line of presidential succession. The boy who was classified as an enemy alien became one of the most powerful men in the American government. Daniel Inouye died on December 17, 2012, at the age of 88. His last word, according to those present, was aloha. He is buried in the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, the Punch Bowl, overlooking the harbor where, 71 years earlier, a 17-year-old kid had bandaged the wounded while bombs fell around him. His story is not just about physical courage, though the courage is staggering. It is about what it means to love a country that has not yet decided whether it loves you back, and to fight for it anyway with everything you have, including the parts of yourself you will never get back. The 442nd's motto was "Go for broke." Daniel Inouye went for broke on a hillside in Italy and spent the next 67 years proving that the bet had been worth it. If this story moved you, subscribe to follow the Untold front. New stories every week.